right now. We are so starving for football that we'll accept any level of it. So maybe it's better to load up week 0 with crappy games, keep the good matchups for later on in the year. Obviously, right now it stinks. You're looking at it and it's like, oh man, I got to get jazzed up for Notre Dame Navy. But when now in a couple weeks when it's like, oh, there's 5 good games, you'd be like, oh, maybe we saved it. Maybe that was a good decision but it's a far cry from when we had like Notre Dame, Florida State. What else have we had in week 0? We've had some good big time matchups the last couple of
Northwestern, Nebraska last year in Ireland.
we thought the quarterback for Nebraska was going to win. Was going to win the Heisman, right?
Right, exactly. It's enough to kind of like wet the palate, but not enough to be like it's August 26th. You're overloading me with football. It's a nice little slow introduction into college football. And look, that's what I'll take. I can't do an overload on August 26th, but it at least opens the door. Football's back. The first game may be played in another continent, but it's there. It's football. It's in front of us. So I'm very much looking forward to it. I assume, Mr. Irish over here, that the Notre Dame Navy is the game that has your attention the most.
Yeah, for sure. It's not as exciting, like I said, as when I had Florida State week 1 to focus on. And it's like, man, this will tell me a lot about Notre Dame this year. This is not going to tell us a lot about Notre Dame this year. I'm expecting Navy to be really bad this year with a first-year head coach moving on after their longtime head coach, who I'm not even going to pretend to pronounce that name.
Ken Niumatalolo.
Niumatalolo, yeah. I didn't have it handy.
I'm used to being with Sean Brace, so I totally get the pronunciation situation you got going on.
Me and Brace should have like a pronunciation contest at some point. I am the absolute worst when it comes to that. But I think that Navy's going to be really bad this year. I guess you could say, if you're a Notre Dame fan or whatever, if Notre Dame doesn't lay the smack down, maybe it's time to be concerned. Like if they don't cover this spread, if they don't put up 35 plus points, like maybe then it's time to be concerned that Sam Hartman isn't the savior, because Notre Dame's schedule is absolutely brutal. They are going to have to kind of take care of the cupcakes.
So when you're looking forward to this matchup, obviously Sam Hartman making his debut for Notre Dame, new offensive coordinator, still Marcus Freeman as head coach. And like you said, Navy's going through a head coaching change as well. And there's some buzz there that Navy might throw the ball a little more, which, I mean, that's a little more is more than what they've done in the past.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at this game, if you go to DraftKings Sportsbook, Notre Dame is a 20.5-point favorite. The over-under is 49. Navy a plus 850 underdog. I assume you're not taking the money line there, but how are we approaching this game? Notre Dame with the 3 touchdowns in their favor. You like it?
Yeah, I am all in here on Notre Dame minus 20.5. Obviously, you look at last year and it's like, wait, Notre Dame only beat Navy by 3 points. That was a bizarre game. They scored 35 points in the first half, and then Navy just started running cover 0 blitzes, and Notre Dame's terrible quarterbacks from last year had no idea what to do. I mean, it was a rough second half. They still won the game, but you look before last year, and a 20.5-point spread has not been nearly enough in this rivalry as of late. 34-6, 52-20, 44-22. I expect, Audric Estime to really, really kind of start his campaign as one of the best running backs in the country. And then I expect Sam Hartman to do more of what he did at Wake Forest, put up, 350 plus yards, 400 plus yards, throw for a bunch of touchdowns. But yeah, I'm all in on Notre Dame minus 20.5. I also like the over. I'm split on how to play the over. So I like the over at 49.5, or maybe even 49 actually right now. But I also do like Notre Dame team total over 34.5. I do have some numbers here. The last 12 meetings between these two teams have averaged 62 total points per game. You wouldn't think that, obviously, with the triple option that Navy runs. So that is kind of a positive, especially if they are going to throw it more, like you said, which is a possibility. They've at least committed to running a lot more shotgun. So they might still run a lot.
Right?
They've moved into the 70s or the 80s, at least. So they've moved past the Stone Ages. They're still about 40, 50 years behind, but they'll eventually catch up. But yeah, I mean, at least they'll be running from the shotgun. It's not straight under center, 2 yards in a cloud of dust. It'll be a little bit more room for kind of explosiveness. Notre Dame, they've had their best quarterback in 2 decades, is what it comes down to. They have their best quarterback since Brady Quinn was on that campus, to be quite honest. I think he's probably better than Jimmy Clausen was. Jimmy Clausen was kind of a creation by draft media like Mel Kiper. He was not very good in college. Like, he won like 4, 6, 7 games each year at Notre Dame. But I think Notre Dame, they put up 35 with like a high school quarterback last year on this Navy defense. The Navy defense has not a lot returning. So you look at that. A new coach. I just think this is an absolute beatdown spot for Notre Dame. So that, I've talked myself into the team total. So I guess go with go minus 20.5 and go team total over. So you don't have to rely on Navy. But if you're not looking at team totals, you just want to take a total. I do like that over at 49.
So talk to me about what our expectations actually should be for Sam Hartman, because I feel like it's a Notre Dame quarterback. He put up a ton of numbers at Wake Forest. An offense that you're designed to put up a lot of numbers in. So how does this fit? It's, like I said, it's a new offensive coordinator. You said Notre Dame haven't had a quarterback like this. So how do we kind of measure expectations here for Sam Hartman? Should they be through the roof? Should we maybe, he's playing a tougher schedule. Is that something we take into consideration, or are we just going on the Heisman train right away? Like, how do we measure expectations for Sam Hartman? How do we do it in a week 1 game that they're supposed to win?
I think he's going to put up big numbers in these types of games. And if you look at kind of his Wake Forest game logs, when they played bad teams and bad defenses, he really poured it on. Like he really put it on against those teams. I think Heisman might be a little strong. I think the schedule is just so hard. I don't see Notre Dame being a contender in any way this year. So I don't see them kind of in the mix. And I think at this point, I feel like you do kind of have to be in the mix. Like, we've seen Johnny Manziel win it at 9 wins, but he beat Alabama. I mean, we saw Lamar win it at, I think they won 8 games, but Lamar was an electric factory. Sam Hartman's not going to have highlights like Lamar Jackson. So I just don't see a way that he's going to be a Heisman candidate. For me, I think Sam Hartman's kind of what's making me feel okay about Notre Dame. It's more than like he's bringing me from thinking, oh man, this could be a dark year in year 2 for Freeman to, okay, they'll probably win 8, 9, maybe 10 games. 10's probably a stretch, but probably 9 games. If I had to guess where they'll be, I think they'll be a 9-3 team, probably with losses to USC, Ohio State, and Clemson. But the receivers, it's not a great group. Tobias Merriweather, Rico Flores, Chris Tyree. It's not a great group. I don't think that, Jaden Thomas, Deon Colsey, I don't think that it's terrible. I think it'll be passable. I think there's a chance a lot of those guys look a lot better with Sam Hartman. I'm judging them based on how they looked with Drew Pine, Tyler Buckner, and that's probably not something that's fair. So maybe these guys are better than I'm expecting. The real concern, you mentioned it, is the offensive coordinator. Notre Dame decided that they were a poor this offseason. They decided to be poor and not keep Tommy Rees. That's one thing. Alabama, Tommy Rees.
It's hard, though, if Alabama comes calling and they're like, it's difficult to say no to them, especially with the checkbook they can put out.
Absolutely. And that's why, like, there are Notre Dame fans out there and Tommy Rees is a Notre Dame legend. Like, he's a quarterback and, he's a Notre Dame quarterback. So it's tough to see him go. There are Notre Dame fans out there who are really mad at him, who are really mad at Notre Dame for not putting up the money to sign him. I'm more mad that they decided they couldn't spend $3 million on a buyout for Utah's offensive coordinator. What are we, Akron? Are we UTEP? Like, what? You're the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. You print money because of the football program. Like, I didn't understand that decision at all. Apparently Freeman was not happy about it. He really wanted the guy. So the fact that now we're settling on this tight end coach who was an OC during like the darkest years of West Virginia of recent memory, like, it's weird. It's a weird decision. I don't really get it. I can't believe there wasn't someone better available, even outside of the Utah OC or Tommy Rees. I can't believe that there wasn't an outside hire that was better available. But I think Sam Hartman will be like a 4,000-yard passer, put up big numbers. Notre Dame will be a 9-win team. But I don't think he'll be in New York for the Heisman ceremony.
Sam Hartman starts out the year tied for the seventh lowest Heisman odds with Bo Nix, Michael Penix, and Drake May at plus 1,600 DraftKings. Caleb Williams of USC, a guy we'll get into a little bit later, is the obvious Heisman favorite at plus 450. Jaden Daniels, LSU at 1,100. Quinn Ewers, 1,300. Carson Beck, 1,400, along with Cade Klubnik and Jordan Travis. So everything that we've kind of put together here about Notre Dame, the obvious assumption is they're going to beat Navy. But how quickly, and this is the last thing we'll hop on before we hop on to some other games, is this a spot where maybe the first half looks intriguing? It's an 11.5-point line in the first half with Notre Dame. I look at this if they're looking to make a statement right away, if Sam Hartman is Sam Hartman and it makes these receivers look better, I think looking at this game, and maybe this is also me just being like, I don't want to watch a full college football game in Dublin, although it is college football being back. It's going to be a very ugly college football game. I look at this Notre Dame 11.5 first half spread, and it fascinates me because it feels like statement to me if you're Notre Dame. Look, Navy in a transitional year, yes, maybe they have some passing plays that end up going for long yardage, but how many do we really expect from them? That's why I'm a little kind of sheepish on the total. So I look at this game, and it's the first game of the year. Notre Dame wants to make a little bit of a statement. National TV, new quarterback. I look at this, and they can easily put up a decent amount in the first half. So I'm looking at Notre Dame minus 11.5 first half. That's probably the way I go instead of full game, just because I feel like I get a little nervy with teams letting their foot off the pedal in the second half of games like this.
No, that's totally fair. And this is like such a dumb point. And I don't know if I've ever like said this on radio or podcast before. There's a little part of me that thinks teams don't like to pour it on against service academies because you don't want to, you don't want to rub it in Navy and Army's face. Like
right.
No one hates Navy and Army, but I do think minus 20.5 is too low. Like if that number was 27 or 5, I'd be like, ooh, maybe they won't want to rub it in. I think 20.5. I think they should win by at least 3 touchdowns. But even last year, you look at last year, in a year that they only won by 3 points, they were up at halftime 35-13. I think the half spread is just as good of a bet as the full game spread. I actually meant to hit on it. I'm happy that you brought it up. I like both. I like the team total. I like the over. I'll be betting all 4. I'll probably put like 2 units on each, honestly. Like I kind of like them all evenly.
So you're either going to start your college football season off with a bang or just completely in shambles by the time UTEP and Jacksonville State end up on your TV screen at 5:30 on Saturday.
Well, don't worry. After the Notre Dame game, I'll take my power nap and I'll get ready for the main event of the night.
Which is UMass and New Mexico State, of course.
Oh, no. It's Florida International, Louisiana Tech. Let's be honest.
So let's touch on the rest of the slate since it is pretty small and just go over those games real quick. It's UTEP at Jacksonville State. Rich Rod back in the FBS with Jacksonville State now in the CUSA against UTEP. UTEP is a 1-point favorite. The over under there 54. Ohio may or may not have a healthy quarterback. Curtis Work making his way back from a leg injury. They're at San Diego State. That game screams just boring, and San Diego State just waltzing their way to like a 10-6 victory. They do it just like they do in basketball. They love playing defense out there. UMass New Mexico State. It's the ESPN game at 7:00. Yeah, that sounds really weird because it is. Hawaii and Vanderbilt. I want to get your thoughts real quick. It's the only SEC team in action. Maybe they're an emotional angle there with Hawaii. I know we look for everything as bettors. USC is playing, but they're on the Pac-12 network, so good luck finding them anywhere. And I won't be home, so you can't watch it on my TV, guys, but I do have the Pac-12 network. USC hosting San Jose State. They are a massive, whopping 30.5-point favorite at DraftKings. And then Mark just mentioned the nightcap, a beautiful Conference USA game as well. FIU and La Tech at 9. Real briefly, we'll get to USC in a second because they're the other marquee name on the schedule, Mark. But Conference USA, I like what they're doing here. I can't tell you all the teams in the conference, and I could probably get these teams wrong on matching them with conference because of realignment. But they're doing like an October Maction thing this year where they're playing their midweek games on Wednesdays for more recognition. They just signed like a grant of rights to get all these teams like together and cohesive for more than like 2 or 3 years. It's something. They're doing something. If you give me Wednesday football, I will watch it. And if you strategically place your games in week 0 when there's nothing else going on,
Yeah.
I'll at least pay attention to you. I'll at least be like, okay, I know who you are. So look, it's UTEP, Jacksonville State, FIU, Louisiana Tech. Not exactly the blockbuster names. I will say, if I do have a bet, it's probably UTEP. Experienced quarterback Gavin Hardison. I tend to go with a lot of experience early on in the season or motivating factors. And that's where I look at UTEP. Jacksonville State gave up a lot of points in the FCS last year. And look, the step up against an experienced team is going to be tough, even at home. So I'm taking UTEP probably on the money line there, a team that I benefited from many, many times 2 years ago when they started hot. But I know you're passionate about the FIU Panthers, who are usually one of the worst teams in the FBS. So please tell me on Florida International.
Real quick, Rich Rod you said the Jacksonville State coach, right?
Yes.
I'm a big Rich Rod guy. People don't like Rich Rod. I feel like Rich Rod gets an unfair shake.
I think Rich Rod before Michigan was like, okay, he's perfectly fine. But once he went to Michigan, it ended up being like, I feel like people turned on him.
But he went 11-1, 10-2 at West Virginia, 3 straight years there before going to Michigan. Also, I despise Michigan and hate them more than any team in the country. So what he did at Michigan is a plus for me. Like, I'm happy what he did at Michigan. And then people don't like to talk about it. When he went to Arizona, 8-5, 8-5, 10-4, 7-6, 7-6, 3-9. So yeah, he got fired at the end there, but he got a pretty good run there at Arizona.
Wasn't his son the quarterback too at Arizona?
I think it might have been at the end. I think it might have been part of the problem, maybe. But yeah, I feel like early on there, he had more success at Arizona than
I feel like we're going to reach a point. That game's at 5:30 on Saturday. We'll reach a point at like 5:45 where the college football viewing public is going to be like, wait, Rich Rod? He's back?
Yeah.
In FBS? I feel like that's going to be like the what your Twitter timeline is going to be like. Oh, Rich Rodriguez, he's back. He's still coaching. I feel like that's going to be what the sentiment is.
It's funny because I remember when he was coaching Arizona, I feel like I even was guilty of it. Like, I feel like he was a punchline. I feel like people were making fun of Arizona.
Well, it's because Arizona football has been a punchline for the last 20 years.
He was the only guy that hasn't been a punchline there. They were decent. I mean, they're actually not bad this year. They can compete, maybe 5-6 wins, but yeah, they're a joke of a program. But yeah, anyway, back to my FIU Panthers. And by the way, this bet goes against a lot of my rules. This okay. FIU bet. I am not betting on the FIU Panthers. I am betting against Louisiana Tech. I don't understand the Louisiana Tech win total at 6. I don't understand the Louisiana Tech being favored by 11.5 angle in this game. Like, it just makes no sense. They both went 2-6 in the conference last year. FIU was actually 4-8, while La Tech was 3-9. Hank Bachmeier is the reason we're saying La Tech is going to be some Conference USA powerhouse all of a sudden. Like, I don't get it. I think Hank Bachmeier stinks. Boise State, didn't they get better once he stopped playing last year?
Taylon Green is going to be a player to watch this year at Boise State. He was electric when he took over for Bachmeier. I think late September they made the move. It was very, very fast.
Yeah, I mean, and he was someone that people were talking highly about coming into the year. I've never gotten the Hank Bachmeier thing. That guy stinks. I don't understand how they're an 11.5 point favorite. FIU's bad. They've had injuries this offseason to make them even worse, to be quite honest. Not to sell people on the pick. But what I'll say, they go for it on fourth a lot. They go for 2 a lot. They do a lot of aggressive things. I think that creates opportunity. So what I'm going to do is
it sounds like that's creates chaos more than opportunity.
It could create chaos, but Louisiana Tech's so bad. Like, I just 11.5 points, and you're giving me plus 340. What if they go for it on 2? They go for it on 4th. They get a touchdown instead of a field goal or instead of 0 there. That swings the game in terms of win probability by a good bit there. I think that when you play dangerously, you obviously have the chance to get blown out, which if you look at their losses last year, they got blown out in a lot of them. But that's why they won some games. They got aggressive. They made games close that they were huge underdogs in. So I think that's my angle on this game. I'm not that passionate about it, but I am passionate about Louisiana Tech under 6 wins this year.
I wish I was as passionate. I came into thinking, hey, I'll be the Conference USA guru here and be excited for it and be happy about it because they're giving us midweek football in October. And then I'm like, you're talking about FIU and Louisiana Tech at 9 p.m. on August Saturday.
I think these are the 2 worst teams in the conference.
You're really selling that late night game.
Yeah, but Louisiana Tech, I think they have the 4th best odds out of the 8 to win the conference, and I think they have the 4th highest win total. There's 3 teams below them. I don't have it right in front of me that are all at 5.5 in terms of their win total. I don't understand. FIU's down at like 2.5 or 3.5. So I understand FIU's going to be bad, but I don't think Louisiana Tech's going to be average is kind of where I'm coming at it.
Yeah, look, it's a fair way to approach it. I mean, look, we don't know much about these teams going into it. And look, even if you say you do, there's a lot that goes into week 0 and even week 1 where until we see these products on the field, we're not sure. Now, the one team we haven't talked about yet is USC. Caleb Williams making his 2023 season debut at home against San Jose State. It's USC's final year in the Pac-12. It's a lot of teams' final year in the Pac-12 now. They're a 30.5-point favorite against San Jose State. This game's on Pac-12 Network, like I mentioned. So nobody's really going to be watching USC except for highlights on Twitter. But I look at this, I'm taking the same angle I am with Notre Dame. I think USC just comes out, makes a big statement. Minus 18.5 in the first half is probably the way I'm laying here with USC. It just makes too much sense because, again, you want to come out and make a statement. San Jose State, not that great. I know USC has had problems in the past with these G5 California schools. Fresno State comes to mind with Jake Haener. I believe that was USC. Am I confusing UCLA? But you get the gist of it. There's 1 or 2 of these games sometimes that USC kind of drops off. But I feel like under Lincoln Riley, it'll get a lot better. I feel like it's a fast start. Again, make a statement, go out and show everybody what you're about. If you're Caleb Williams, if you're the Heisman favorite, go put up some big numbers in the first half and then sit in the second half. I feel like that's how USC is going to approach this, and I really do like that first half line under 3 touchdowns.
I like the logic there. I'm probably going to stay away from this one, but I guess my question to you is, do you have them winning the Pac-12, and do you have them in your playoff?
Man, I think that's the obvious answer, right? Because everybody it feels almost too obvious, though, to me. Like, if I look at this and everybody's on USC and there's a chance, like,
Pac-12 is really good.
Right. And I'll be honest with you, like, I'm buying the Kool-Aid on Oregon State.
Oh, I'm buying the Kool-Aid on. I think there's 5 top 15 might be strong. I think there's 4 top 15 teams and 5 top 20 teams in the Pac-12. And honestly, I like Washington State too to be like an 8-9 win sleeper as well. Like,
it really is a shame that this version of the Pac-12 is what we're going to go out with, because it has the potential to be like a really fun conference for the next few years. And now these teams are splitting up.
It's the best since USC's heyday. I maybe even better, because I feel like at that time, so many of those teams were down. Like so many teams were not what they are now. Like Oregon was not close to what they are now. Washington was not what they are now. Utah, Kyle Whittingham wasn't even there yet, maybe. Or if he was, it was the beginning of his tenure. So, yeah, I think that the Pac-12, it's the best it's been in maybe my lifetime right now.
I think I'm going to take a flyer on Oregon State just because I believe in redemption with DJ Uyunglele.
I'm a DJ guy. You don't got to tell me.
Oregon State is being left out in realignment. What better way for Oregon State to finish off the Pac-12 as we know it than to win the damn thing? And look, if Uyunglele turns into what we thought he was going to be at Clemson, there's a chance. So can USC win the Pac-12? No doubt, of course they can. But if we're going to take a flyer here, I'm going to take it, and I'm going to go with Oregon State, because I hate betting conference favorites and futures. It's just not my thing. It's not. So yeah, that's kind of where I look at that. But here's the first game. I think they cover the first half and blow the doors off San Jose State.
I like the I understand Oregon State's probably the smarter bet. If I told you, this is a hypothetical that I just thought of, you get $1 million if you hit all 4 playoff teams. You get to guess them before the year. You get $1 million if you hit all 4 at the end of the year. Not taking chances, not looking at odds. You just have to predict the 4. What 4 are you giving me?
Probably giving you 3 favorites and then plucking one out of obscurity. Because
that's how it goes.
Because that's how college football goes.
Yeah.
I'd probably give you Georgia.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah.
I'll give you Michigan.
I'll go Ohio State.
I'm not going to go Ohio State. I think there's just a small enough margin for error with Ohio State where it ends up hurting them. I'd actually take Michigan to start, maybe even Penn State over Ohio State, depending on how quarterbacks develop.
I have Penn State over Michigan. So I actually have Michigan third team in that conference. I know that that's a hot take, but I think it's razor thin between all 3. I think this is the best Penn State team of the James Franklin era. I actually have so my 4 is, just to be quick, Georgia, Ohio State, Florida State. I'm a Florida State believer. I'm buying all the Seminole Kool-Aid. This is not a week 1 podcast, but game of the year potential for me with Florida State against LSU in week 1. I love Florida State in that matchup, but I have Florida State as the 3rd one. And then my 4th one, I'm not passionate about. I'm split the way I predicted every game. I have every team's win record in front of me. I have USC as an 11-1 team that goes on to win the conference championship.
That might not be good enough.
I have Penn State as an 11-1 team with a win over Michigan, who will be 10-2 in this scenario. Who gets in that scenario? Let's say USC doesn't get to avenge their loss. They lose to Oregon or Washington or Utah, or Oregon State, and then that team doesn't make the championship.
I would probably lean Penn State, right? Because of who their losses could potentially be against.
Yeah, Ohio State or Michigan.
Yeah. The problem is, I don't know if I completely trust James Franklin in that moment to get the job done. It's kind of like it's a prove it type thing with that.
I'm pushing my chips all the way in on Drew Aller. Drew Aller,
which is not a bad thing. I just don't know if I would.
I have the same concerns about James Franklin. I'm not a James Franklin guy. I'm not a James Franklin believer. I think he's a used car salesman, but I think Aller might be special. I love what I saw in the
take Aller out of the equation. I mean, the running backs, the 2 freshmen that were studs last year. I mean, they're back and they're a year better. I think that's kind of I know we focus so much on Drew Aller, but to have those 2 running backs there is absolutely massive as well.
And then you have Olufashanu is going to be a top 5 pick. Chop is Chop Robinson, Chop Johnson. I know that there's a player on Penn State's defense named Chop, which is always that's a crowd favorite. I need to get the name. So it's Chop Robinson. Okay, so I got it right. So Chop Robinson, he's a DN. I think he's like a really, really high recruit. I don't think he's had production, but he's a freak. Like the measurables, and people are saying he's like blowing up the spring. They have like 3 projected first-round picks right now, Penn State, and then you have a guy.
And they'll somehow find a way to lose 3 games.
Right, but you could be right. They have a running back who people are comparing to Adrian Peterson in Nick Singleton. I heard that comparison by Bruce Feldman. You have Drew Aller, who's the best quarterback prospect at Penn State since, I'm not going to say his name, but it starts with Hack, and that guy stunk. But I won't. You could
even say Kerry Collins. I know that predates. I think that predates both of us, but I mean,
people were excited about Hackenberg. Hackenberg was a big deal.
They were until they realized he couldn't play.
He was not good. But I'm high on Aller.
To kind of go back to your question here, I would say I'm going to have to go Georgia until proven otherwise. Although I think there's a lot of unrest in the SEC West this year. And I don't think Bama is the team that they face in the SEC championship game.
Ooh, I like that take. I'm not high on Bama. I have them winning the SEC West, but I don't love it.
The SEC West would be by far the more competitive of the 2 divisions. The SEC East is – Tennessee is going to have I would assume some sort of step down, even if Joe Milton is the real deal. And then look, Kentucky's ceiling is probably 8-9 wins tops.
I think they win 9 games. I like
that's
Devin
not out of the
Leary
question.
there.
That's
Yeah,
absolutely not out of the
like
question. Liam Cohen back there is the OC. Devin Leary, if he stays healthy, it really ends up being a nice combination for Kentucky. And look, Kentucky, all you have to do is win 8 games and get to a bowl game each year in football. They're a basketball school.
Yeah,
but
I'm low on Florida and Missouri, so it kind of allows me to be high on South Carolina and Kentucky, who I think are going to be in that 8-9 win range. But Georgia, I think it's
so
13.
If you have it, Georgia, I'm going to give my nod to Michigan. They've at least been consistent, and they're not going to miss Harbaugh with their cupcakes in the first month. And then it comes down to me, can USC get through the Pac-12? I don't know, because the Pac-12, like you said, is very strong. I'm still going to be a Dabo and Clemson believer until they prove me wrong. I mean, they were not great last year and still ended up being where they were. I mean, Clemson is going to win 10 games no matter which way, who's on their schedule doesn't matter. Clemson will be in the picture at the end of the year, which is why I still have them over FSU. And the ACC sure as heck ain't getting 2 teams in a 4-team playoff. So that kind of leaves the door wide open to somebody from the the Big 12 emerge. I don't know. So I think by default, I'm kind of giving you Georgia, Michigan, Clemson, and USC, which is kind of boring. But what did we do last year for the first 3 months? We said it's 3 teams and everybody else.
Yeah, no, I don't have any problem with it. I have Georgia, Ohio State, Florida State, USC. It's not that much less chalk, to be quite honest. I'm sure the odds aren't that much worse.
I would love to see a TCU team in the playoff.
So this is going off the rails, but I love it. If you had to give me a TCU off the rails playoff team, who are you looking at? I'll throw some names out.
I'll go Oregon State. I'll just
Oregon State. I like that.
I'll ride with the chance I'm taking them with them in the Pac-12. Look, I think Uiagalelei's got a point to prove. What they've done there in the last few years has built up to something. And look, I don't think they can realistically make the playoff, but if everything aligns perfectly for them, like it did with TCU, experienced quarterback, a coach who is, I think, one of the more underrated coaches in all of college football. Not a lot of people talk about Oregon State. And if they do, it's about the Rogers brothers and Chad Johnson and TJ Hushmanzada. And it's not about current day. Steven Jackson, too, I think, was in Oregon State. Oregon State, very, 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 very sneaky good NFL production line for a little bit there. Look, if we're going to take a shot, I think that. I mean, nobody in the ACC really stands out to me. The Big 12, I feel like, is just going to beat up on each other, and they're all going to be angry at Texas and Oklahoma. The SEC, would it really be a surprise if LSU took that monumental jump under Brian Kelly? No, because he's been there. A&M, I feel like if Petrino can put that offense back together, A&M's got a chance.
I'm done with Jimbo. I'm done.
A lot of people
can't do it. I can't do it anymore. I can't do it. But you're right.
And then the Big Ten has 3 teams, and they're all going to play each other, and they could all conceivably beat up on each other, and one of them's going to end up in a championship game, and nobody on the other side of that conference, maybe Wisconsin, I feel like Wisconsin, maybe in 2 years, we're talking about them being that team, but I can't see them now. So yeah, it's just kind of just is what it is. If you want to complain about the top teams being the top teams, go ahead. I'm not going to really care about it. It's just the way it is. And there's 136 college football teams. Yep. I guarantee you can find excitement outside of the top 3. Trust me, I'm a soccer guy. The same team wins all the big leagues every year, and I still find plenty of enjoyment. I know how to find enjoyment in college football, and you telling me that the same teams win every year is not going to bug me whatsoever.
There's a very strong possibility that we get the Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State beating each other 11-1 each situation that we got with Texas Tech, Oklahoma. I really think that that's possible. I know Brandon Walker from Barstool has been pitching that one big time. I don't think there's any other good teams in the Big Ten.
Well, the good news is for Penn State, they don't have any scar tissue from any playoff discussions similar to that from any year. So they'll be quite fine if they handle a situation like that.
And to throw out my TCU, it feels like it's not fair to use them as a TCU They're definitely more on the radar because they won the Big 12 last year. But I do think Kansas State has a legitimate chance to win that conference and get into the playoffs. Like I'm a Chris Kleiman believer.
He's a heck of a coach.
I think you're probably right. I think the Big 12 probably does beat up on each other too much. I have them going 10-2 and then winning the conference. That won't be good enough. But I think that there's a chance if you go 11-1 and win the conference, maybe a win or two over Texas. They went 5-2 and Will Howard starts last year with a one possession loss to TCU on the road and a loss to Alabama in a bowl game. Like I really do Will Howard. You want to get crazy? Stay in the same state and let's talk about Kansas. Jalen Daniels taking them to the playoffs. No, I'm joking. But over 6.5, I think
the main goal of the Big 12 this year is just to make Texas and Oklahoma's life hell. And if one of those teams emerges as a title winner or a playoff team, sure. But I really do think there's going to be a lot of vengeful type games. And look, the Big 12 adding those teams too, the Houston, UCF, BYU. It's going to be a hell of a conference to watch, but maybe not in terms of a playoff perspective. All right, we've gone about 40 minutes here. We're going to wrap things up in a little bit. We're going to do a week 1 of some sorts if John Jansen and Sean Brace survive Las Vegas. We will do that, and I already have a few underdogs lined up for week 1. Cough, cough, Nebraska. Cough, cough.
Cough, cough, Duke. Cough, cough.
I did this thing just to kind of preview where my head's at. I kind of scrolled through all of the odds in week 1. I think there were about 4 or 5 dogs that I looked at. I'm like, you know what? I can convince myself. And Nebraska being the first one. I don't think anybody believes in Minnesota this year, but that's kind of give you a where my head's at. My head's already kind of racing for week 1 and that the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it's robust. It's robust, and you have to go back and getting back into college football. A full college football Saturday is it takes.
Don't sleep.
You got to do it repetitive.
Don't sleep on North Carolina, South Carolina. That is a fun game.
That's a fun game. But I think in terms of underdogs, I'm I'm already lining a few of them up where I'm okay, I can see you winning this game. Cal at North Texas. I don't know who scheduled that for Cal. That feels like a corpse of a program.
Hey, they only win as underdogs, or they only cover as underdogs. Have you ever seen that guy's stats? His stats as a coach, what's his name? Justin Wilcox, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
His betting stats as a favorite are hilariously bad, and then his betting stats as an underdog are so good. It's bizarre. Really, really weird numbers. I'll have to find that and send it.
I think there's some out there where you can look at the odds and be like, okay, this should this team really be favored by that much? I mean, I look at scrolling through it, and we're kind of spitballing Virginia Tech in no way, shape, or form should be a 15.5 point favorite in any capacity. I don't know who they're playing, or I don't care who they're playing. Coastal UCLA has potential to be just fun.
By the way,
late night.
I kind of love the big favorites next week. A couple big favorites that I love. Yeah, I don't have to give anything away. Penn State is going to beat West Virginia by 60 points. Sorry to Kevin Kincaid.
No, well, I think West Virginia knows their place where they are in college football. They're lucky. They're lucky to be hanging around in the Big 12 right now, and that's kind of just the state of where they are. So kind of recap. I'm going Notre Dame, USC first half. I feel like those games are just going to be complete blowouts, and they're going to be done pretty early. So give me those two. And I'll take UTEP as well. That's probably as detailed as I'm getting with my card. I know you're all over Notre Dame, and you're going to have the full card for us. But it's nice to at least get back into a rhythm with college football. We'll be doing a lot more of these live streams throughout the season as well, with a whole bunch of characters when they're not probably drunk on a flight to Las Vegas. So for Mark Henry Jr., I am Joe Tansey. Make sure you listen to Tough Cover on Saturday mornings, college football preview podcast as well with myself and John Jansen, among plenty of other things. And we will be back hopefully next week with a week 1 preview, a lot more games to cover, a lot more games to dive into. So looking forward to that. Thanks everybody for popping in tonight.